Okay. Welcome to everybody who's watching. I just want to check if this is going. Yeah. So, I think I am live right now. So, welcome to everyone who's watching. First and foremost, I would just like to thank whoever is involved in me or Dibulela ababheqeshi be-Wesley Guild Facebook SA page for inviting me into this platform and sharing my experience and sharing my views into being in sports and being in the administration of sports. I don't take it lightly. But first and foremost, I would just like to introduce myself, formally introduce myself to everyone, because I believe everyone who watches or everyone who is on this page is from different spectrums. So igama lam ndingu-Aphiwe wakwaPhuzi. I hail from the Eastern Cape. I am originally from the Eastern Cape, kwilali ekufutshane nedolophanyana ekuthiwa yiQonce, ilali yaseQugqwala. Ndikhulele naseMdantsane. Abanye abantu might know me from East London. I am a sports management graduate, and I graduated from the Cape Peninsula University of Technology. That's where I did my qualification. And now joining into sports and introducing you into what I do. I grew up, I would like to position myself as a person who grew up in a sports orientated family. That's how I always refer to myself, where my father was working as a administrator, from administrative position up to where he is right now. He is working for SARU. So I would say I ndayincancebeleni into ye-sport. But before I go any further, I would just like to pinpoint, or I would just like to make it clear that whatever I say here, or the views that I'm going to be giving here are of my own self. I am not representing any brand but my own self, sharing my own personal experiences, sharing how I have been as a person journeying into sports. However, I hold a position at the Cape Town City Football Club as a marketing assistant and an events coordinator. That's where I currently am, and that's what I currently do. I would say my upbringing shaped my interest in sports, as I said, particularly rugby, as it was a frequent sporting code in my household. However, I've never had aspirations of being in sport as more of like a career, and even though I loved sport, but I would see sport more of like an entertainment. That's how it appealed to me. It was more of like an entertainment, and I never saw a career abroad it. So when I enrolled to study in university and I got accepted in sports management, it was not even one of my career choices. One, when they finish high school, you would want to go into engineering, you would want to be a doctor, you would want to be like do all the other interesting courses that are out there. Sports is one thing that has never been something that has had volume, something that has always been told or instilled as a career choice. So I've never thought of it or have seen myself that I would end up in sports management. So as I was there, then I grew into it. I did sports management. I did my first year and I did my second year. And on the third year, when I was doing my sports management, we got a chance of doing a community engagement where we had to visit disadvantaged locations and disadvantaged schools in the Cape Flats. And the program was directed by Dr. Talib. Dr. Talib is one of the best in sports management in Cape Peninsula University of Technology. And there we had to develop training programs and activities for the young kids. And this was when I positioned myself, and that's where the spark ignited in me, that I realized that I want to be more on the coordination side. I want to be on the events management side. I thus then pursued a BTech in marketing after finishing my diploma in sports management. And whilst at it, I have had an amazing opportunity of working as an intern at the Western Province Rugby Football Union as part of experiential learning. And I was more involved on the side of amateur rugby as the club intern administrator. So that's when my journey started. That's how I have been. Okay, now going into me being into administration, maybe there's someone out there who is asking, why sports? Why did you choose to be in sports? What was the most appealing thing to you to stay in sports, or what has kept you in sports? I would say sports is mostly seen as a form of entertainment, as I said. It's seen as a form of entertainment, and most people haven't been fortunate enough to see it as a career choice. So when we took this leap and we ended up more on the career choice of being in sports management, that's when I realized that there is life in sports, not only with you being involved in sports by being an athlete. You do not need to be an athlete. You can still have a career, you can still have a future in sports through studying and actually going into a working place and positioning yourself in that. Now, let me go deeper in sports management. What is sports management about? First and foremost, sports management consists of different aspects of modules. So in sports management, you would have what they call sports and physical recreational studies. That aspect of sports mainly focuses on, if you want to be on the physical aspect of sports, scientific side when it comes to sports, that's where you will find your sports analytics, that's where you find your physiotherapist, that's where you will find the people that the trainers, dietitians of people that are doing sports or athletes. That's one side of it. And then there's the other side in sports that is called the sports management aspect of it. That's where you learn about the principles of sports, where you learn about the rules and the regulations, the law of sports, where you learn about aspects in terms of margins that you have in sport, that you would side. There's an athlete. After there's an athlete, there are clubs. If there's no clubs, there are unions in sport. So that's one thing that sports management mainly focuses on. And then we have sports marketing and we have events management. So I've been able to position myself in sports marketing and events management. That's where I saw myself befitting. So in sports marketing and in sports events management, that's where you will maybe bridge off into being more in the events coordination side of things. Um, Currently where I am, where you would maybe be part of a club and you would offer assistance in terms of making sure that sporting events go through. That's when you have your matches, that's when you have your tournaments, um, that's when you have aspects in terms of branding. You have your branding, you have your sponsorship, you have your clients being the actual athletes. For example, in my in my aspect, I am more into football. So my clients will be merely sports soccer stars that you see along the way. It would be the sponsorship that are involved with the club that you work for. It would be the people that are into the daily tasks that involves being in the union. For example, let's say I would make a practical example with being in rugby. It involves maybe the sponsors that you have there in terms of who sponsors the main sponsors, and in the events coordination side, that's when you will have to look at your stadiums, places where sporting events take place. For example, you would have stadiums. If you are into boxing, you would look at arenas. If you are into tennis, you would also look at arenas. If you are in hockey, you would have to look at the hockey fields. If you are in swimming, you will look at places like facility management in terms of swimming pools, and all those kind of aspects involved in that coordination. So, there's also an aspect in sports management that is being called sports public relations. In sports public relations, um, it's more like dealing with the public. When you would have your sportscasters, that's when you would have your broadcasters. That's when you will have people that are behind getting the sporting out there, paper trail. That's when you would have your people doing sports journalism. So it's more of like relating with the public to communicate what happens into sport, bringing it to people who are more into watching sports or that are enjoying sports. So with me, as I said, I chose the side of the events management and the side of the marketing aspect of sports. That's where I've been able to position myself. Now, one would ask, or when you saw the headline of the the, the poster that I was on as being a female in the administration in sports, and one would think, first thing that comes into mind when you talk about sport is that it's a men's world. That's one thing one would think of. And for example, if you could maybe stop someone and you just probably ask them, which league do you like the most? Unfortunately, a person would have a more appeal of a male dominated league. For example, a person will tell you about a Premier Soccer League, a person will tell you about English Premier Leagues. It's rare that you would find someone that would at first pinpoint a female league. And I think it's very true. The industry is male dominated. That we can never run away from, and maybe women somehow become outnumbered, and it's such a competitive industry. If one would get into it, you would have to add on something different. That's one thing that I've learned through my journey. So when you come into sports and you're doing sports, one thing you need to understand, if you want to come in and make an impact as a female, you will have to always come up with something different. One will need to understand that sports is more of like an aspect that is, it's passion. To other people, it's passion. It's not just merely about just it as being a career. So that's why other people, when they get into sports, they get in as athletes. So sports gives people so many opportunities. So if you are willing to be submissive, if you are willing to be innovative, if you are willing to grow, it will give you that. But as for me, giving my own personal journey experience, sometimes it has questioned my abilities. I would say that it's important to stand your ground when you are working into sport. If there's to be one thing I've learned is that is to invest time. I've learned into investing time. So opportunities didn't just come, because it's very rare that you'd find in sport that as a freshly new graduate, as compared to other career choices, that you would find a job. First and foremost, I've learned that one of the key things that you need to do when you involve yourself in sports is to always invest time into volunteering. It's important to volunteer. That's one thing I've learned. Um, we are definitely not where we need to be in terms of capabilities, in terms of job opportunities that are in there, in terms of standing your ground. It's important that you always position yourself as a person when you get into sport. And as I said, it's very broad. Sports is very broad, it has so many aspects. So when you get into it, you will need to find your way through it. You will need to thrive inside and see, this is where I fit, this is where I can see myself thriving. So and going back to how I cope with being a female in a man's world, I would say we are definitely not where we were years ago. That's one thing that I will need to say. However, there's so much work that still needs to be done, and by me saying so, I'm hoping to change the norms. That's one thing that I've had to learn growing up. I'm hoping to change the norms that sport is just only for those who play it, but it's also for those who are as talented and are able to come up with ways to contribute positively into the industry, particularly young black females. I like to think of sport as a very noble profession that shapes characters, it shapes calibers and the future of an individual. So when you get in, you always have to think beyond. Try to always find ways to developing yourself in the sporting industry. But obviously now we have like more thoroughbreds coming in. It used to be an all black back then, like an all men's world, where you would have guys dominating in the industry, but the roles now are becoming very substantial also to females. So that's why I think it's important, whenever you get into sport, you must just try to find your way through it. And one would ask how I keep myself going. I am just going to take an opportunity to answer some of the questions that I'm getting. I will definitely give time for people who would like to ask questions, to ask me any questions. But for now, can I just be allowed to just move on, and maybe I will engage as time goes. So I would say with technology and its integration, it's always great that we are able to move forward in sports. For example, there is e-learnings now. Now you can go in through with the information, with the communication in sport, through digital content in all platforms, and live streaming of all events. One can go into that way where you position yourself in terms of digital marketing when it comes into sports. And another role that I have tried to maybe find ways, or maybe one would say, what are the things that keep one going in terms of you being a female in sports? I would say I've definitely enjoyed to see transitions, especially in times. So our sports has changed, that it has changed the normality of things. So I wouldn't say that is it's not a men's world entirely, but we as females, we're thriving in very well into the sports industry, in terms of in terms of administration. And I think it's always about fighting the legitimacy of women in leadership roles. For example, we have about three female CEOs, if I can recall, who are in sports, and 11 female presidents and six vice presidents. So we just need to, when you get in, you just need to do stretch and if there's to be anything that I've learned for myself, is that when I'm there, I pave a way. That's why I pave a way. And I want, when another black female comes in, it doesn't necessarily even need to be a black female, just to say that I have made it much more easier for them to thrive into the sporting industry, or I have made an impact and I have tried to make them to make their way a bit easier than it is right now. So we always need to stretch the importance of that, taking female sports very seriously. So that's why when I said, when I referred back, if you would ask someone about what they like in sports, first thing they would probably tell you is or if you would like to ask them, who do you look up to, which athlete do you look up to, they would most probably refer you to a male figure who is an athlete in sports. So let's try to minimize that, and try to um, welcome more of the female. Try to be familiarize ourselves with the female leagues that are going on. Try to promote all the female sporting codes that have been instilled. And then one would probably ask themselves, how do I manage to keep myself going in the industry? What do I do to keep myself? So I would say, for one, if there's to be anything, I allow myself to always learn. That's one thing, to learn from those who have already been there. And I believe I've been granted the opportunity to also make a difference into the sporting world. So it's important that when you are in the sporting world, to always do better, to always try to better, because our sports industry is not where you would find, maybe not here in, like, over and abroad, maybe overseas, that you would find the opportunities that have been presented to them. It's not the same as it is here in South Africa. So if one would go back to such things, and I would say, it's important that we have these seminars, that we are given platforms each and every time as females to express how we feel when we tap into the sporting world. It's important that we are given the opportunities to always voice out, to always appeal to people out there that females matter as much as males are in the industry. So that's one thing that I've learned. And if there's to be if there's to be another thing, that I keep myself motivated, to stay motivated, is to always concentrate on the people that understand your journey. For example, i sports is not only for people that play it. Sports is also for people that want to grow, that want to make an impact, that want to make development. There are people who still want to take sports maybe into the previously disadvantaged backgrounds. For example, you would have an athlete that is growing up, typically, to make an example, in rugby. In rugby, there is an all boys school. An all boys school is all well known for taking and grooming young, upcoming rugby players. For example, you have someone that would want or have the passion to play rugby, but hasn't been afforded the opportunity because they go to a school who doesn't have the facilities, a school who doesn't have the push to push that athlete forward, or maybe that doesn't have even the equipment to keep that player going forward. So I think it's important that as we tap into this world, into the sporting world, we are able to also look into the previously disadvantaged communities, that we are able to move forward all those people that are in those schools. And we take away the norm that in order for an athlete to, where they already have the equipment or where they already have been afforded the opportunities to move forward. So if there's to be one thing that I as one would like to see going forward is that I would like to see more in the industry, and veterans from South Africa over and abroad in Africa, in sports journalism, it could be in sports administration, it could be also in all other aspects that are involved in sports. And if there's to be one thing that I've learned is that if you want something, if you need to tap into spaces where you feel like things haven't been said or haven't been done in normality, then you change in all of that. So what I've always been trying to position myself and always tell myself is that everything that I want is on the other side of fear. That's what keeps me going, is in that I need to learn away with saying this belongs to certain people, and do more with thinking that I can do it. If anyone else can do it in the industry, so can I. So when you step into the industry, try to think less of a person that you are, but more of an impact that you would like to bring in. So I think that was more of what I was supposed to share as a journey. Now I will try to maybe see what maybe you guys have to ask me. Maybe you have questions that you need to ask me. I think the broadcast will be published after this, when I finish the live video. But as I said, I would just like to say thank you to everyone who has given me the opportunity to share my journey and to share my experiences in the sports industry. And yes, I think that's more about it. So if anyone would have questions, then the broadcast will definitely stay on the page, I believe, from what I heard from the administrators. So Solom Zinyezi is asking what drives me, and how do you charge your battery? Okay, what drives me most importantly is where I come from, understanding that I believe I'm not one of the smartest person, but I am a hard worker, and if I set myself up to any task, then I make sure I give my best ability to finish it. So what I wake up and do each and every morning is trying to want to see a better self version of what I am today. So today I might be this person, but tomorrow I thrive to be better than how I am today. And thank you so much for the compliment. And I think that's more about it. Someone is saying SA is going down, and I'm a rugby player, 16 years. Mara, there is no going forward. Puti, one thing I can tell you, you are an individual on your own, and it's important that you position yourself. As I said, it's important as a person not to make yourself or not to make yourself more of a minority or a majority of people. Try to always strive to work harder than you already are. Attend tournaments. Try to find hubs that are in the area where you are staying. Someone will definitely recognize your craft. Someone will definitely see someone will see your efforts into being a greater player. So Luzuko is asking how difficult it is for any person, either a female or a male, to be employed by professional sports clubs, especially if you don't know anyone there. I think when I shared my journey in the beginning, I explained that in sports, I feel like if you are waiting for something to happen to you, it's not like any other career choice. You always have to sell yourself. You always have to go out there. You always have to prove that you are worth it. And I said, sports is not only just a career, it's a passion. So when you get into the sporting world, you need to be able to do it for the love of it. Go, even if you're not getting paid, get in there. Even if they're not going to give you anything, get in there, do your thing. Ask them to give you a chance. We all come from humble beginnings when it comes to sports. Where on my first internship that I did, I spent 6 months without getting paid, and I would go each and every time, and it's not that they didn't have a position for me, or it's not that they didn't have work for me. They had work for me, and on basis of that, I've been able to market myself. I've been able to build a network through that. So I didn't know anyone when I came in, but I made sure that by the time I left my first internship, everybody knew me. Everyone would think of me when something would come up. So that's how I've been able to position myself. So Umpendula is asking, what difference have you noticed being involved in both rugby and soccer? Sporting codes are always different in many aspects. So when I was in rugby, a rugby is more of like a union. It's governed by bodies. It's governed by a certain certain people. I would say it's a union. It's got a lot of people. So when you get into soccer, it's more of like different. I would say soccer is more, I would say it's very intimate. So whatever happens, if you are a club, yes, we have a league. A league, it's something that oversees all the other clubs, but a club on its own is more intimate, and every decision is being made here, and you have to always constantly think on top of your head. So soccer is more intimate as compared to rugby, I would say. Main Gamatai, how are you handling your career during the lockdown? I would say that during this lockdown, if there's to be anything that I've learned, is that no one was ready for this. We didn't prepare far ahead for this, and a lot has been put on hold. We are not playing. Everything is just on the standstill, and it has given each and every one of us time to reflect, to pause, to think, but we would definitely like to move forward. But as I said, in terms of us to keep the career going forward, we still manage to make sure that sports is relevant. We still do it through digital contents in terms of all social media aspects. That's how we've been able to move forward. So Umtokozizi is asking, what are you looking to achieve in sports fraternities compared to where you are right now? So Mtokozizi, what I'm looking to achieve, as I said, is to break the norms and to see more females coming into the sports industry. I would love to see more leadership roles being taken by females. It would be great one day to have a president in the Premier Soccer League that is female. That would come as a great as quite a great improvement. Is Cape Town City providing sports administration for sports management graduate? Or would you be able to help me getting one? Unfortunately, I cannot answer that question. And as I said in the beginning of this live video, that the views that are here are from my own self, and I do not represent the club. So I think I have covered much, and thank you so much for taking time to tune in, and I hope this has shed some light into someone who is journeying into sports, or who would like or who would want to see themselves thriving in sports. And Timothy Silwan is asking, what is your favorite plan in sports? Lastly, do you see sports breaking the race card in South Africa? Timothy, I think I have said that I've enjoyed to see transition in how in times it has affected the changes in sports. So my future plan is to move. Particularly, it doesn't have to be in football. It doesn't have to be in swimming. It doesn't have to be in hockey. It doesn't have to be to see myself going forward. I just love to see more females coming in. I'm all about females. Not to say males are any less, but it's just to create the margins that allows all young upcoming black female professionals in sports to have opportunities within our own leagues, within our own unions, and within our own clubs. I'd like to thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope this has been innovative.